Good evening, welcome to Safford City Council. Reminder, if you have a cell phone, to go ahead and mute it, silence it, or turn it off. It's up to you. We have full quorum tonight, and our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be offered by Councilman Arnold Lopez, following the invocation by Councilman Mike Anazola. Would you stand with me and remain standing for the prayer, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day which you've bestowed upon us, Lord. We thank you for this wonderful day and this weather you've just given us. We praise you for everything that you've offered us in our time here with the city of Safford. We bless everybody here gathered tonight. We pray for our manager, our council, our department heads, and our employees. And bless us as we make decisions tonight, that you hear us, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. We do have some citizen comments on agenda items. Mrs. Chacon, did I say that correct? Brenda? We do have you on line item 13, which is report on operational items. Would you like to stay for the council meeting and talk then, or do you want to go ahead and talk now and then you can leave? So it's up to you.
I'd like to talk now.
Okay, perfect. Come on up. And then once again, just feel free to talk to us.
Hi, my name is Brenda Chacon. I live at 607 West 16th Street, Safford, Arizona. I was here 2 weeks ago for the meeting. And all I really have to say is I would like my neighbor's plumbing removed from my property. That's simple. That's it.
Okay.
I can go on and on, but it's just that simple. Can you guys remove or send me in the right direction or talk to whoever I need to talk to have their plumbing removed from my property?
Okay. You know what? If the council's okay with this, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of shifting around here. Jamie, can you go ahead and come on up and talk to us a little bit about this real quick? Brenda, would you mind scooting over and letting her talk, and then that way you're on the agenda and we can talk with you as well. So, Jamie, go ahead.
Sure. So, Jaime and Morgan have been working with the property owners. The sewer line in question is on private property and had one connection for both properties. Morgan has provided a new connection to the street for Ms. Chacon to remedy the double connection. The owner of the other property told Jaime Holguin he is in the process of ordering a survey to see whose property that the sewer line is on. I've spoken with Ms. Chacon on May 2nd, May 3rd, and today, and Mr. Casella has visited her property and looked at the new sewer work put in by the city, and we've given her phone numbers for local surveyors. It's a civil matter that either she or her neighbor will have to pay for a survey to show whose property the line is on.
Okay, so Jamie, what if she just went on her property line and just cut that line and capped it off?
We don't know where the property line is. That's where the survey would come in. There are no pins or stakes. We don't know where the property line is. So the city, we don't know whose property it's on. So if she capped it and it was on her neighbor's property, then that would be a civil matter between them also.
So we use a survey and deal, and so does the county. What those lines are pretty dang close, within a foot or two.
No, sir, and Councilor McGoy can probably answer that as well. Often they're as much as 30 feet off, and her property has a 75-foot frontage on the street, so the accuracy for that, it's not near close enough to find whose property that's on.
And so there's nothing that the city has looked back on to actually try to remedy this, why? I know that sewer lines have to be inspected
Yes.
to the tie-in. So somewhere along the line, the ball got dropped by the city, or was this way before the city ever had any code enforcement?
It was way before, and Morgan or Jason can probably tell you what year the line was put in. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, Morgan, but the city, wherever it is from their house to the connection. I don't believe we inspect that, Morgan.
And could you also, Morgan, explain to me what the sewer line is? Is it PVC or is it clay? Because that's going to determine how old it is by what you tell me, because I understand the age limit. So go ahead.
So Mayor and Council, what we did was we separated their common tap, as Jamie explained, and I believe that was a clay line. I know the neighbor's house, which was suspect to be tied in as well to that one tie-in, was clay. But we did separate them, and now she has a PVC line going from the property line to the main.
Okay, so it's clay, so that tells you it's a little bit before it's actually after Vermco pipes. So
Correct.
I believe that the city had code enforcements back then, but regardless, I really wish the city could help rectify this situation instead of just passing off to a surveyor. I understand, and if there's no documentations in our part or Mr. Chacon's part or whoever's part of saying that there is an easement in there, ultimately, I guess then she'd have to get a survey done, and if it is, then she can go today or tomorrow if the survey got done and cap that line off, period.
Yes, sir.
And then the city's gonna charge the new, for that new service line, $3,500 for a tap.
So Mayor and Council, similar to Brenda's location, I offered to create a tap since there was a conflict, and we did separated the tap to the property line without cost to Brenda.
And did you explain that to the other property owner next to Mr. Chacon's property? That you would do that
Jaime-
without nothing?
Mayor and Council, Jaime did explain that. I did tell Jaime I'd be willing to do that as well to alleviate the conflict. I'd be willing to create a tap and put it to the property line where we're responsible on the actual municipal.
That would save that property owner a lot of money. I don't understand why they wouldn't do that, but okay. All right, sounds like you have worked. Mrs. Chacon, I hope this helps you any. Do you understand the circumstances with this and the reason why we're explaining that we need to get a survey on the property?
I do, but also, I have, the exact, size of our property where it went. I inherited the property from my family. I have all the deeds, the paperwork. I looked up parcel. Can I ask him a question real quick?
Sure, go, be respectful, please.
Thank you. When you're talking about clay, you're saying clay,
Right.
are you talking on this side of the property or on my side of the property?
That would be from the property line to the main, so on
Okay.
our side of the responsibility.
Okay, because the other piping is PCV, their plumbing is, okay.
Okay, so at this case, without you getting into a big, and I mean, I'm no attorney. I'm just a dumb contractor, okay? But I would hate to I would hate for you to cap the line without getting a survey done. And so that would be that added expense, or possibly talk to your neighbor and say, hey, the city's willing to waive a $3,500 fee to tie into the sewer line, so all they would have to do is run to that. That saves them a lot of money because, I mean, I hope that helps you any, but you're stuck with having to have a survey so you don't end up in court. And then spending a lot of money through lawyers, because I hate lawyers.
Right, do you?
Yeah. But we all have to have them.
That's right. I don't know, I haven't talked to my neighbors lately, but they, through their surveying, I heard it from somebody through the city, that they were gonna have the property surveyed, because I'm not gonna have it surveyed.
Right, the city doesn't survey personal property.
No, I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But also, they did give me a couple of numbers, but I didn't get nobody back also. Nobody called me back from surveying.
Right, and they're all so busy and tied up.
So, yeah, I mean, I was gonna talk to somebody about surveying the property, and, but to this day, I haven't heard back from nobody, so.
Do you think it's a possibility that you could speak to your neighbor and share that information with them, or even have something from the city showing that we're waiving the?
I did talk to their daughter and said that, you know, they could do that, but she said her mother was not willing to move the plumbing off my property.
Well.
So I didn't talk to her, but that's what
Unless
she
the
said.
rest of the council wants to engage in some dialogue, Mrs. Chacon, I'm sorry, I feel like we've done a lot for you and the other property owner. And now I hate to turn it into a civil matter for you, but I'm afraid that that might be the direction it goes. And, you know, unless, I know that we will get it right once we have a survey done and get lines on said properties. But at this time, I really feel like we've exhausted all of our resources for you, and I'm so sorry. I know that's not the outcome you wanted.
Well, no, I didn't, because, I mean, this is a problem that I didn't know existed until the
Overflow.
the overflow
Yeah.
came and is flooding my backyard.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I let them know it's leaking, but I had to get someone to come out and tighten it. And I would hope they would want to survey the property. That's
Right.
my outcome.
Right.
So if I do get a surveyor, I mean, I can, well, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, if you
Simple,
did, you
simple.
absolutely, and a line from, let's say, my property next to you went through your property, you have the rights at that time to cap. You do. I would encourage my neighbor to get that line fixed before
Right.
that happened.
Right.
And give them a little bit of a, you know, a month or so to work with them as well. But I know that the city wants to work with them, and I think that's, you know, I mean, that's a huge impact savings for your neighbor. And once again, I know that's not the answer you're wanting, but.
Right. I'm just like, well, like I said, they did give me a number to surveys. I called.
Okay.
I haven't heard. But if they're gonna survey the property, I'm not gonna
Sure.
double,
Double
you
it,
know,
right,
why?
absolutely. Let Councilman McGoy speak as well.
I don't want to throw another chip in there, but my sewer is on my neighbor's yard. And it's been that way since the day it was put in, 1928. And there is no easement for it. When we bought the house, we asked how that works. They said you have, if anybody ever throws a fit about it, you can say, just like if you've been driving on this road for 7 or more years, you have an easement, a prescriptive easement. You would have to take it to court and fight it, but they cannot make you get off of it because it was designed that way and put in that way. I don't know that that applies here, but my sewer from the additions in the back of the house, they're on my property, but from where it ties in at my kitchen, it's on the neighbor's yard, and I believe, I've been told by the local plumber that almost every one on Fifth Avenue is that way. There's only half as many taps as there are houses.
Councilman McGoy,
So
correct
I
me
don't know
if,
if it applies to this, but
correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding on that law is that once I find out that there has been an issue, I need to notify you that there is an issue of property line variances, and therefore I want to claim my property back. So I think that could apply. So I don't know, I just know that I've dealt with that before on my property, and the moment I find out that my neighbor was encroaching on my property, and they had been using it, and they tried to do the same thing as a claim deed, and because they'd been using it, I notified them, and then my property definitely goes back to me. So I don't know.
That's possible, but that's what title told us when we bought the house, that
Gotcha.
they can't make you get off of there. So it all becomes a matter of attorneys. That's the expensive part of it.
Well, I don't really want to, other than just fix the problem, just get it off my property. But I don't think the house is as old as 1928. The house was built in 72, 73. That line wasn't there when the house was built, just to say. So it's not like he said that it's so far old and back in the day that, we can't remember where the lines were before, I mean, it didn't happen back in the 28s, 30s, 40s, not that far back.
Okay, go ahead,
I just,
Councilman Steele.
I understand your problem but basically at this point, all we can do is throw out opinions and stuff. I think the
Absolutely.
bottom line is, before anything can happen, we need to make sure where the property line is. Until that happens, there's not much that, anyone can do.
Okay,
The city's tried to alleviate it to the extent that we can, but I think, once we find out where the property line is, then have a better idea of what the options are at that point, other than us just trying to take.
yeah,
a guess at
exactly.
what might happen.
Stories, yes, I know. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, we appreciate it, thank you. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start our, we have no comments on non-agenda items. We're gonna move on into our budget, 23, summary of budgets. And Sabrina?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we'll be going over the summary of all the budgets. We'll be starting with the general fund tonight. My main goal here is just to bring to you just the changes that have been made since the last time the budgets were presented to you. So in building maintenance, overtime was increased by $1,790 to be more accurate, and this is based on year-to-date and prior year trends. City Council, we've increased your budget by $12,200 in community donations. And those were discussed at the last council meeting. That included a $2,200 increase to the Eastern Arizona Hispanic Heritage for a total of $2,700, $1,000 increase to the Junior Basketball League for a total of $6,000, $4,000 for future recreational programming opportunities such as the Volleyball League, and $5,000 increase to the Downtown Association for a total of $10,000, with a cumulative rollover up to $15,000. Finance has increased the professional services by $2,000 to reflect the actual cost of the annual
Hey,
comprehensive
Sabrina, I need to stop you
financial.
for 1 second, hold up.
Sure.
Do you want us to engage in after you went through this or during, when we
We-
have a question?
You can interrupt me.
Okay, council, you hear that? So when you need to chime in, feel free. Go ahead.
So finance has increased $2,000 to reflect the cost of the annual comprehensive financials audit plus the single audit. Human Resources has added $4,000 for the ID card processing. The Streets Department.
That's one I have questions about.
Okay.
Okay. The mayor discussed something about the training that monies was put up for. Is that still gonna stay in there? We never talked about it, that it was gonna stay, it was gonna increase that much or overall, but I didn't think you were positive about that at last meeting.
I think that's, she'll be bringing that up down here further under HR. I think she's just saying that, HR from where we were last week, or 2 weeks ago to where we are now, that we added another 4,000 for ID cards,
That's correct.
right?
I did not remove anything for training.
But you,
So the
Okay.
30,000 that was in there previously for management training is still in there.
I'm just,
Okay, so when we get to that item, I have some serious questions about that.
Well, we can talk about it
All right.
now.
Am I just the only one that has the heartburn on spending 30,000 training 11 people? Am I the only one?
no,
I just don't think that's spending money wisely. I just don't. I'd rather see us take that $30,000, this is just me. As I've read through this, we're offering a 1.5, we're asking for a 1.5 increase in our employees. And I know that it brought to me that it was to quote unquote, this 30,000 was to quote unquote build morale. how do you build morale to the entire organization? Is you take care of your people. That's how you build morale. And I know when I asked for 100% on the insurance, I was just shot down. And I asked for a 90%, or I think 95, and that was shot down. I would like to see either we do something better for our employees, either through the insurance or through doing something better than just a 1.5% across the board. When I read this, we're putting a surplus of approximately, I'm just using this approximately, 100,000 into, or no, excuse me, $1 million into our, what's it called? Rainy day fund?
The
Is that
reserves.
correct? I mean, I know you're gonna be talking about that. I'm just rounding it up. Isn't it 900 and some thousand, but I'm rounding it up to $1 million, okay?
Yes, you're correct.
And we're almost at 50% across the board on our rainy day fund. And at the very beginning, I remember talking, or listening, and I hadn't been here for everything, and so that's why you guys, if you want to tell me to hush, then I will, because I hadn't been here for the whole process. But if you put in $1 million into a rainy day fund that's already over 30%, and I'm just saying that across the board, when some places aren't even at 15%, and we're already above and beyond that. I know it looks good for when you borrow money, for instance, as we did for our PSPRS and stuff like that, but I just have an issue spending $30,000 to train 11 people when I would like to see everybody reap the benefits of either training or everybody reap the benefits of something better than a 1.5. Granted, I understand that down the road, there's also the second half of the other people that's getting the 3% merit raise or whatever it was, and then we're ending that program. So I'm just throwing that out there.
I just,
Hang on. Go ahead, Gene, and then we're back over here.
well, you know, when we get these figures presented to us, I think staff and finance department and the manager have taken a look at the whole picture. And I'll tell you what concerns me is that what I'm finding right now in my business is that everything has gone up to a level that I never thought was possible. And so I think as we look at the budget here, we're going to get some surprises as we go throughout this next year, because a lot of the things that we projected to be a certain dollar amount, we're going to find out that those increase. And I don't see anything wrong with putting a little bit away. We've done, and we always need to do things for the employees, but we have done some things that you've already mentioned. And I think by the time it got to us, they've looked to see what they feel like we can afford to do. And if things work out better, do something again next year. But once you give a raise, I mean, it's there every year. Doesn't matter what the economy looks like, you're still obligated, you know, to pay that salary. So I'm comfortable with where we're at, to be honest with you.
Are you comfortable with the training?
I don't know about the dollar amount, but I think that's one thing that I've always felt like we need to make sure that our supervisors are trained. There's a big difference, as you well know, between being able to build a house and being able to supervise people who are building the house. And I think that there are, you know, there's probably training needed. The dollar amount, I don't know exactly, but I think it's a good thing to have our, especially those who are supervising others, have the training that they need to be able to make their departments function properly.
I was just gonna add, I had the same question. I didn't know if we had, I remember discussing 1.5, but I didn't know if we had settled on an amount for that, if that, I remember being a little more clear about the direction on the 85-15, but it did seem like we had a consensus direction on if it was 1 or 1.5 or what the percentage was.
So
I just wanted to add that. I didn't feel like we
Councilman
had a
Hemphill,
consensus direction to,
the
not
amount,
that you wouldn't put it in as like a placeholder. I understand why you do
we did
that.
put 1.5 in there. If
Right.
that is something that you still want to discuss or reduce, we can still do that.
So
Well, I'm kind of between the two. I completely understand what Councilman Seal is saying with, and this predates me, so maybe I'm off a little, but it seems like there might have been a time for some of the longer tenured employees where they were asked to make some pretty steep sacrifices while our fund balance was low, until we could get in a better position. And to get to that better position, and then to try to, and I'm not saying we would shift this intentionally, but to shift the argument into, well, we don't know exactly what's coming, which is a valid point. If I'm an older employee, that starts to look pretty bad to me. And maybe we didn't have that in the past. My understanding is that we did. We had some years where employees were kind of asked to tighten up a little bit till we could get things in a better position. If that's not accurate, somebody can correct me. But if that is accurate, then again, it's just kind of bad optics to get into that better spot and still hold off.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, and I want us to stick with the spending 30,000 to train 11 people, but then also talking about, if I'm reading this correctly, what is it costing us to increase 1.5%? According to what I'm reading, you got 69,000. That's not correct, is it?
155.
155,000 citywide.
I didn't hear you.
It's 155,000 citywide to
It's
increase 1.5%.
155 by the time benefits and everything are paid, correct?
Yes.
Just for the 1.5?
Just for 1.5. And that's a year. But we're sinking $1 million into a rainy day fund.
Right.
That's already above 30%. So.
Mayor?
Okay, hang on 1 second. So that's my 2 cents. Now, Councilman McGoy has something, and then definitely write what you're doing and chime in. Councilman McGoy?
Well, what does it cost to send us to League of Cities and Towns and get us out of here for a fancy weekend and all that? You're pulling somebody in here to do training, and they're the ones getting the vacation out of it. And they're getting a pretty hefty fee. I would like to see the other way around. I would like to see our people, I mean, if we're gonna spend this kind of money, they need to get something more than a 30-minute class out of it. I would rather see us spend that kind of money. I don't see that we need to spend that much, but they could get a retreat and some training for that kind of money in my part of the world.
If I recall, Dr. Maria Church, the Government Leadership Solutions, did have that option. So I don't have the figures right now, but I can certainly go back and look at that and see if it makes a difference in the costs that we're spending. I do want to mention that the 30,000 is over a course of a year. It is 4 workshops, and they're half-day workshops. So it's, I mean, I know it does sound expensive, but it is for doing quarterly training for the next year, if that helps any. And the other thing to keep in mind is it's not necessarily just the one that was selected. There's been a few others that we've looked into, and for the in-person interactive training, it's all coming back pretty much the same as far as costs. So, I mean, there's other trainings we can look at, such as like doing online courses, but the point of this training was to have the interaction with her team and do more of like a team building type atmosphere for the training. So, but there are like 12-week online courses we can put our managers through if we want to save money and go that route. So.
John?
Well, she already addressed the training issue, so Mayor, members of council, it's a little bit misleading the way that the information is projecting the fund balance, because we're going budget to budget. We didn't do our projection on a budget to budget. We did our projection on revenue on actuals, which is about half the number you're seeing there. So the budget that we're balancing to isn't 1.4 million, it's somewhere around 700,000.
So the reason is because we reduced the budget for the COVID situation. Revenues obviously would come up higher than that. So all the fund balance information that you've been receiving is indicative of that increase in the fund balance based on numbers above the budgeted number you're seeing. So we based our projection off the budgeted, which is higher than, or the actual, which is higher than this budget number, and then the going forward to the current or the future year, the one we're discussing. So the amount of money you're dealing with actually is half of what that is because of the way you budget. And I know that sounds somewhat esoteric, but it's just the way that the budgets are put together. So you don't really have $1.4 million of new money. It's roughly half of that, and that is an estimate going forward.
So what are we, how much are we sinking into the rainy day fund, and where is it going?
As
What-
of right
what three
now,
items is it going in? Sanitation and what else?
right now, in terms of the overall fund balance, I don't think we have a lot left over. We're almost to a fully balanced budget, so technically, we wouldn't be sinking anything other than maybe somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 into the rainy day fund right now.
Okay, so we're not sinking $1 million
No.
into it.
And that's part of the problem with the way it's presented, is that it's somewhat misleading in terms of the way the budget is built.
And
So again, we're building to that number.
And John, all due respect, I'm trying to understand how it gets misleading. Those are the kind of things that when I see the misleading things, that's when I think, okay, do I need to dive into this deeper? If you would help me understand why it's not $1 million and it would be half of that, tell me why that's half. Can you explain that better to me so I can understand it?
So when we did the current year budget, the budget itself was reduced in terms of the revenue estimate. Now, the revenue estimate is what you budget to spend. So they budgeted down because of COVID, right? So the budget itself was set lower. COVID ended up being an economic stimulus. It didn't end up being a deficit in revenue that was anticipated. So revenues came in higher than the budgeted number. So the first number you see on there, your actual revenues came in higher, quite a bit higher, right? So the fund balance information that you've been receiving all along, up to this point, has incorporated that higher than expected revenue stream. Now, it's from that higher than expected revenue stream that we then projected for the following year. So from an actual to an actual, you only have about half of what that's showing. Does that make sense? So in other words, if you look at it just from a physical standpoint, the budgeted number you're seeing in there versus the budgeted number that we're budgeting for this year, the actual number came in the middle. So the gap is only half of what you really look at budget to budget, because we based it on the actual.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Sort of?
I think it does, just couldn't repeat it myself.
It's a technique, and so we probably should have had something else in there that would explain that more fully. When you look at the revenue projections, you're not gonna base it on your budget, right? Could be higher, could be lower. The revenues that you look at, you base it on the actual numbers as they're coming in, right? Because that's what you're trending. So again, the actuals came in much higher than the budgeted number for this year.
And so to help me get into Councilman Sills' boat, instead of swimming all by myself and him not throwing me a lifeline,
You're not by yourself.
you feel like this is the best you can do at the 1.5. What I'm saying is bringing us a balanced budget that you feel comfortable stamping your name on.
Absolutely. And again, my fear is that we get a little bit too excited and we go too far too fast. You're in a highly inflationary market. You have an unstable international community. You don't know if there's a recession right around the corner. The markets are flying up and down. To my mind, it's not a time to get way out in front. Now, does that mean we can't rearrange the way if you want to take $30,000 out of training and put it in salary increases, you can do that. There's probably even a little bit more money that we may be able to put in that direction. That's certainly a viable option. But again, the budget itself, we're trying to cover a lot of bases here. And one of the things that we're trying to emphasize is that human resources is an area we want to have a focus on. Yeah, it's new. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's a lot more money than you're used to looking at. But this is what organizations do when they train their management teams. It doesn't mean that you're going to agree with it or we're going to go forward with it, But what it does mean is it's not as unusual as you think, right? I mean, this individual is going to do 4 seminars, show up personally. They're in-depth seminars that cover a half a day. It costs money. It's a personal serve. It's an in-depth, intense training for the management staff to try to raise the bar with your management staff and actually give them tools to use actual management techniques with their employees. Does that mean it's something that you want to spend the money on? No, but it's not that extraordinary when you look at what it does in the grand scheme of things. It's stuff that organizations do all the time. Again, I'm not saying that the direction you want to go in is not, it's up to you. We can try to rechannel that money and put it into salary increases if you want, but it's just not that unusual a situation.
Mayor, I have a question. How much, to bring up, or Manager Casale can answer, how much would a 3% cost us? A 3% increase?
Well, it would be double the 155, so
Another-
zero,
yeah.
so
Another 155,000.
310, something like that.
Would we have the funding for that, or if we have?
I don't think we,
surplus,
I
or-
don't think we have that much. Yeah, I think that would be a little bit, I think that's a little bit beyond.
It's too high.
Yeah.
I think Councilman McGoy is next. Go ahead, Councilman McGoy.
I don't know, I keep hearing these words, like you said, because of inflation, and I'm like, can we look at how we pay people based on that? I mean, what was our tax revenue a year ago compared to last year, compared to, what percentage gain did we get? That's what inflation is. And it seems like that's the same amount that we need to be putting into these people's paycheck, is the real cost of inflation. I don't know how we can keep saying inflation is, I mean, it depends on who you listen to. It's 6%, it's 10%, it's 20%, you know. But how can we keep giving them 3% in a 6% world and keep them? We're not. We can't. And I don't know what the answer is, but when you show us, and I think, I mean, I don't like to say this, but it's manipulative when you put that number in there and then tell us it's not a real number. You should have put a number in there that we could understand. Because when we see that there's $1 million extra in there, we want these people to have their raise. And so I think maybe if that's not a real number, get it out of there and give us real numbers. Because if you're taking, I mean, you're saying you're taking, last year we did it this way and next year we did it that way. That's the whole way finance messes with the board all the time. Well, we took it out of this fund and put it in this fund so that we can't track it. We can't follow you. We can't, I mean, this budget goes up over here and this one goes down and this one goes up. We don't know where the money went or where it's coming from because you keep moving and we don't ever get the same thing 2 years in a row. So I want to, know the truth, and I don't think I'm going to get it. I really don't feel like, I mean, before you were anywhere close to done with this, you said we can't afford it. As soon as it got asked, we can't afford it. Now, maybe you can see that far in the future, but I think you turned the numbers to make it where we can't afford it. And I don't like that. We asked for a 3% raise, and you just said no. I'm not saying we can't afford it. I'm not saying we can't. But I want to, I don't know how to do it, and I'm not smart enough to do it, and that's how you can do it, is you can make this say whatever you want it to say. But I do know that our income, because of inflation, was through the roof. You told us a 2 million something number additional tax. How can, if we brought in an additional 2 point something $million in sales tax, how can we not afford $310,000 in wages?
Mayor, Councilman McGoy, I'm not sure where the $2 million coming from, but we didn't just look at our budget and say, here's money for salaries. We did a whole upgrade to our health insurance, which cost us both the basic increase plus all the additional costs that we incurred. So it's not as if we took the money that we gained and said, we're putting it all in salaries. That didn't happen. As far as the increase in revenues, I don't know where the $2 million number's coming from, but the revenues aren't tied to the expenditures. The revenues are coming in both at either a higher or lower rate, and then laid on top of that would be whatever inflation is. So there's different factors going into how your revenues come in, not just one. The idea about the budget and the way it's projected, you know, it is confusing the way it's put in there. I was down there talking to Cabrina about it today. It probably wouldn't have been the way I would have chose to have done it, simply because it's not the way we built it. But my understanding is that's the way it's been done every year, and again, that's the way it was done last year. So it's not moving, it's not changing. This is the way they did it last year as well. And I guess we could go pull those documents and we could look at them, and the numbers will be on a piece of paper, and then we can find out how we did it. I would agree with you, it's somewhat confusing in the way it's being projected to you. But the idea is that we're dealing with budget numbers, so for the sake of consistency, I'm assuming that's why they put budget numbers in there. But that's not how you project the revenue number.
Cabrina, from last year to this year, what was the difference in what Councilman McGoy is asking for? Do you have that number real quick that you can give
What?
us?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What did we increase in sales tax from last year to this year?
This year, we increased. The budget to budget number was about 1.4 million.
So from.
But that's budget to budget. Are you wanting, I don't have the actuals to budget.
And Mayor Counts, the year's not done.
Huh?
The year isn't
year's not
complete.
done. So
Right.
we're in the process of, and remember, every month we get new numbers. We started this process back in December and January, so whatever additional numbers that you're getting as we go forward, we don't have those numbers when we start the process, when we begin to have the revenue projection. So again, as you get new data in, as inflation kicks in and more numbers come in higher, those numbers aren't necessarily being incorporated because you've already built the model on which you're building the expenditure pattern.
I'd settle for 2 years ago's numbers and last year's numbers and see what the.
That's what I
difference
was
is.
getting ready to say, the same thing, go back and then see, because I'm sure it's went like this, and, because it didn't go down, so that would be from 2020 to 2021, what's that difference in numbers? I guess, I could have looked and,
Well,
Yeah,
it's-
she's not gonna have that off the top of
It's
her
not,
head.
I don't, it's
No.
not a realistic question, and I understand that, but
hang on one second. Go ahead, Steve, finish.
I don't know how we can expect to every, year after year, give somebody half of what their inflation aid and keep them. I don't know how we can sit here and offer somebody 3% in a 6% world. I think the truth is a 12% year, and they need to get, we can't even get them 6.
Well, I'm sure we could find a way to give them 6. I don't know what we'd have to take out of the budget, but it's a relatively large number. I mean, we can move stuff around if that's the goal. It's,
That's the problem, is we keep moving these numbers around to where we can't figure them out.
but in all fairness, we've been talking about this for how many months now? And so tonight, when we bring you the summary of the budget, tonight, we're talking 6%. I haven't heard a 6% number
I didn't
until
hear
tonight.
6%. I heard 6% come from you
For what?
just now.
I thought that's what you just said.
You're saying
McGoy mentioned 6%.
6, okay.
3% in the health insurance and 3%,
Yes,
Oh, I thought you meant a 6% raise.
no.
that's a 6% raise.
Oh, I thought you
in-
meant
in
salaries,
real
though.
numbers.
No.
That's
I thought you were talking
6% in my
about
pocket.
salaries.
No, no, you're
Well, if council wants a 3% raise, we can go back in and take stuff and move it around and come up with another
Well,
3%
I thought
raise.
that's what we asked for in the first place. And you just flat out said, it ain't gonna happen, we don't have it, we can't do it. And then when we see these numbers, it looks like, why can't we? It's only $155,000 more.
Hang on, go ahead, Councilman.
I just wanted to kind of jump off from Councilman McGoy. I agree with the sentiment. And I was a little confused by the 6% too, to be fair, but, the 3 and the 3, is a little more in the ballpark. And I may never completely understand the numbers, and this may sound ridiculous, but if another 1.5 is 150,000, how outrageous is that? That's what I don't understand. In the grand scheme, is that really just pinching it too much?
It doesn't sound like that much money in a $40 million.
Okay, now hold up.
Well, I'm still running these, you got lots of pages, you know, and I know you went through lots of trouble, there's no doubt about it. But when we get to page 12, I'll have a question, because we have a 999, almost $1 million.
That's
And I
budget
think
to
that's the
budget.
million he's
That's
talking
what I,
about.
that's,
Yeah.
Yes, and that's budget year to budget year, not budget
Right.
projected.
And I kind of think that's, I don't know if that's our reserve or what.
So that is what the difference is between last year's budget and what we're budgeting for fiscal year 2023. There's a $999,000 increase. However, but what we are projecting off of is the actuals that are coming in. That budget to budget, there's a bigger gap than what there appears because last year we reduced the budget to account for COVID. Now COVID is coming in higher. So now when you look at your actuals, which is what you would base your budget off of, you don't base it off of your budget because you want to see what's actually coming in. It's a little bit higher. And that difference between there and here, when you get down with everything, is about $650,000. It's not $999,000. Then if you start taking out all of the things that we have added in for the insurance, the 8515, the ASRS has gone up, all of that stuff that we have added into the budget, when we get down to the bottom line, we have about $80,000 right now that we can play with. That's it. And that's because we base it off of projected actuals, not off of last year's budget. So when we present budget to budget, which has always been what we've presented every year, budget change to budget, it looks bigger than it really is. If council would like, I can bring back projected actuals to what we're budgeting. But that $650,000 is including inflation, and that is not something that's going to stay around absolutely forever. That will reduce. So if you're adding things to your budget that are going to carry over year, you're going to reduce that amount, and then suddenly you're going to be eating up that fund balance that we've built up. You're going to be going the opposite direction if you go too quickly. My understanding was that this year we would finish off the longevity program, we would fix the insurance, we would give 1.5% increase, and next year we would be bringing another portion to our benefit and salary, like the whole package, which would include a merit and a COLA and some other options that we could carry over going forward, rather than just jumping in all at once and finding out next year that we overshot because things change, the market can change. That was the overall goal, is to do it over multiple years and come back with plans to fix the problem instead of just jumping at it and just throwing money left and right.
That's what's deceiving. You see that 999,000, so I believe it, but, and that, you know, kind of what started this too was I asked about the human resource budget, which last month was 78,210. This time it's 85,510. That's 7,300. You told me it was only 4,000 that it went up.
So
you
I
know,
haven't
that's the
gotten-
kind of math that drives me crazy. You know, you say 4,000, it's in the notes, but really it's 7,300 added from last month.
And I will get to that as I get further in. Part of that increase is due to internal services. So as internal services funds change, if they go up, it will impact any department that the internal service fund is
Yes, ma'am.
supporting.
Well,
So that 4,000 was all that HR had control over and put into their budget. Any other increase is based on the internal services making adjustments to their budget, which I haven't gotten to yet.
Okay,
so-
So if we take the 80,000 and you take the 30,000 for training, that's 110, right? So you're looking at another 45. So at this point, if you take the training out and you use the 80 that we have left, you come in with another 45, we can do 3%. So we may have to go find 45, but we'll go look for it. If that's what you want, we'll go do it. I mean, again, it's up to you.
And I don't want to, I'm sorry, Katrina, you're holding your own, I really appreciate that, thank you. But I'm gonna, and this is still tied in with kind of where we are, and I hate to jump too far ahead, because you're gonna probably answer some of my questions, but you've got under expenditures, you've got the personnel is decreasing 639,636. So I see that number, I'm saying, okay, we're decreasing our personnel by that big of a number. Why can't we maintain a 3% number or do a 3% increase, which I think would completely boost morale of the entire team. I understand team building, I get it, but I understand unity as a whole, and that's what I'm trying to pick. It doesn't disrespect the men and women in the trenches, and it doesn't disrespect the men and women that are in a desk job. It doesn't disrespect any of them. I'm just wanting to see everybody benefit by what has happened and where we are coming out of. And so, can you, without jumping ahead, can you explain to me the personnel decreasing that much money?
Yeah,
Without us getting too far ahead is?
It's a
now-
simple explanation, Mayor.
Yeah, okay, hold on, you hold your thought.
I just wanted to add real quickly, your explanation of your understanding is exactly what I remember the process being. Your presentation's perfect, your memory matches mine. My only question was, had we settled on 1.5? And
I thought we did.
could we sneak above it?
And Mayor,
That was,
Mayor
but
Counts,
your portion of it's been flawless.
Mayor Counts and Councilman Hemphill, in fact, the entire council, if we hadn't settled on 1.5, we had talked about it enough where if we really wanted to push 3%, then it would have been helpful earlier in the process, and we
Right.
could have geared ourselves in that direction. I don't remember pressing it, maybe we did, but, again, the budget is a plan, and we have a certain number we're trying to hit in terms of that total revenue projection. We can change certain things around in terms of our expenditure patterns. If we were gonna shoot for 3% on salaries, well then, we wouldn't be shooting for 30,000 in training, right? Because we had
Right.
put that into a profile that we thought we were good to go and that money was available. If, in fact, we wanna shift funds into salaries, well then let's just do it. If 3% is what you want, then 3% is what we'll give you, and we can show you what we need to adjust to get you there. Now, if you got 80,000 available to begin with, and you got 30 coming out of training, you're at 110, you're 45 away. So I think we can get you the rest of the way. If 3% is what you want in salaries, then we'll get you the
So,
3%.
You know, John, because I have to echo what Brad said, how Cabrina's thing is, one of the very only ones I think I came to, the meetings. But I think maybe where that 3%, and help correct me, you guys, if I'm wrong, but maybe where that 3% came in was we were honoring the 3% longevity, and then we're doing away with the program after that. So that might be where council thought the 3% came in. You guys think
Well,
that that's where it
and
was?
it could be my mistake on how settled we were. I just remember it being one, and then Councilman Lopez
Added a half.
And
asked for,
Mayor,
and
I guess what I'm saying is, at this point, it doesn't matter.
Right.
3% is what you want. We're almost there. Let's go back. We could take a look at it. The next budget meeting is the tentative. That sets the cap. If we need to go back in and look at moving a couple of dollars around to see if we can get 3% on salaries, then we'll go move the money around and we'll give you 3% on salaries.
I think what I would like to do is I would like to have honored what Councilman McGoy had said too, and say, can we get those numbers and have them actually crunched to where they are the real numbers? And I don't say that disrespectfully. Trust me, you guys gotta understand what I'm trying to say here. And get those numbers to us of the 3% and what that is actually going to do. We know it's 155,000 times another 155,000. That would get you your number, right? But we're still off a little bit. And I would like to know where you're going to cut the 45,000 or the 48,000 to get it if we're to maintain a 3%. But the thing I want council to understand too is, once again, going back to what Councilman Silla said, now this is every year from here on out. So if we did the 3%, some of them are going to get 6% because they're still on the longevity, so they're going to do really well. And we could do a 3%, but that's every year. So it is 300 or whatever it is, 300 and something. My math's not good on my brain. And that's every year, forever. And then if we do it again, it's forever. And which, you know, if we have the funds, the employees deserve it. That's going to be a huge morale boost. I would have rather done the 100% of the insurance, stayed with the 1.5 increase, do 100% insurance, and without being told I can't do it, instead of coming back to me and saying, this is why you can't do it. Anyway, I think we, go ahead, Councilman Still.
No, and I've been through these a number of times, and we'll hear about potential increase next year or the year after. I mean, potential raises, and we look at inflation, and I don't know how many of us at work, Brad, did the school give you a 6%?
5%.
5%? Okay, that's good. County?
Haven't heard yet.
Okay, so,
There's the supervisor right there, we'll find out.
things have increased, but expenses have increased, and everything in here's gone up, and that's why I said to begin with, that, when they bring us these numbers, they didn't pick up one number there and say, we've got 900,000. They looked at the whole picture and look at every department and every area that needs to be serviced. And so I remember just what Cabrina had told us. We decided to, with the longevity and the 1.5, raise the insurance, and that was what we, so something changed in the last 2 weeks to bring this back to our attention, because that's what we had decided, several weeks ago we would do.
Councilman, so what changed my mind was seeing these numbers. I'm like, why can't I give them another 1.5% when I saw the numbers? And then, of course, hearing tonight why they're saying the 1.5 is there, but yet then also hearing that we could take some things and move them around, find another 48,000. At this time, I would have to say, I would like to kind of poll, it's not an action item, it's just discussion and direction. So I guess we can give direction. My direction is I would like to see these employees receive a 3%.
I agree.
I'd like to see it.
Huh?
I'd like to see it in the numbers. And I know you've been scratching your head for months beating this up. You did present exactly what we guided you for all the way up till now. But then Mr. McGoy wants 155,000 more, and we kind of have it, and we've done it. We haven't been wasting no time the last couple of years. We're in good shape. We're not raising any rates. We're not raising taxes, and that's what we plan going forward, except I know he wants a rate study, and so it's almost like now or never.
I think if you do a rate study, you're gonna find out, and I'm not picking on any department, you're gonna find out the police are underpaid, so that budget will go freaking through the roof.
No,
because-
I'm talking utilities.
Oh, a rate study on
No,
utilities.
they got 8,000 for uniforms in
You
here.
don't need a
It's
rate study
kinda-
on everything.
They got
Gosh,
8,000
dang.
for uniforms in here, which was 8,400, but, But I'm leery, Mayor,
I hear
of
you.
the way the world is right now and stuff, but I definitely
You
do
know, and-
want to
and-
look into it.
Councilman McGoy, or Councilman Lopez, I 100% agree, but I can't live in fear. If I live in
No.
fear, I'd just cover my head and say the sky's falling forever. We can't live in that kind of fear
We
of
win.
the unknown. Everything that I'm reading on my budget here is saying that we have the funds, showing that we're projected to do really well and we're doing good. In fact, if you look at what we have in rainy day funds, it shows that we're above on most everything normal. Hearing that some managers don't even have 15% in their rainy day funds, and yet here Safford is at 50% or better, and some of them, and it's like, why do you keep throwing money at rainy day funds when that's like me pulling up to work in a brand new truck hauling the sandrail, and my guys are only getting paid minimum wage. They'll be looking at me like, really? I don't know. I'm just telling you that we need to respect our employees and all of them across the board that are doing that. I do love the idea of the COLA stuff that was talked about. I love that. And John, I know that was something that you had brought up, and Cabrina mentioned it again. And so, I mean, and
Are we gonna beat this horse, or are we gonna let him up?
I think we ought to let them up and bring us some numbers back, and I think I've counted 4 or 5 people that want to see a 3% increase.
I'd like to look at the 3, obviously, but I also wanted to say my apologies for not bringing this up sooner, because it obviously could have been and should have been, and it's been something on my mind, and I definitely waited too long. to throw it back out.
And my
So
anxiety
my
comes out.
apologies, Sabrina
anxiety
and John,
shows.
for that.
And I just want to bring up one thing. Just remember what Councilman Seal had mentioned, and I totally agree too, is that times, they're very uncertain. Don't run in fear, but just be cautious and be aware of the way the market, everything, nationally, worldwide, things aren't good. So we have to keep that in mind.
And just to speak to that point, Mayor Couts, Vice Mayor Ortega, when we set the tone for the projection, that's where that sentiment comes in. Because you have to understand that when we project the revenue, it's an estimate. I don't know what the revenue's gonna be. In 08, 09, people had all kinds of revenue projections, and they didn't pan out so well, right? So you're trending based on history. History can change very quickly. And so my approach from the start has been to have a fairly conservative revenue projection. It could be more aggressive, right? But I chose not to do that because council has finally engaged on the issue of employee salary and benefits in a way that I feel is going in the right direction. The last thing I wanted to do was to get too far out in front of it, have a recession hit in a very unstable environment, and then everybody recoils and says, see, we were being conservative for a reason, and now we've gotten out in front, and now we got a problem. So understand that it's the revenue projection from which everything else comes. We could easily go back in and add $50,000 to the revenue projection, and we're done. And we probably would be safe doing that, right? That's generally not how this is done. So you start with a revenue projection early in the process, and you build your expenditure pattern into it. Now, the way you build it into it is up to you. Now, we came and we showed all the different benefits for health insurance and HSAs and the 3% for the employees. We built these profiles that showed you cost, and as we got those costs going forward, things went down. We added another 0.5%. We could do that. We can certainly come back with 3%. There's a way to do that. It may require some reductions in certain areas of the budget. We can show you where they are. I'm sure Danielle will be more than happy to give up the $30,000 in training to give us a start on that. But I think we can get close to that. So I think if 3% is what you want, then I think we can bring that back to you. There may be a couple of cuts that have to happen.
And I appreciate that, John, and I think we need to be done with that discussion and keep moving on. And I think Danielle will be able to do, I think she is very capable of creating a team-building atmosphere and train the management team off of stuff that she can gather. She just might have to put in some overtime. But I think that she's very well capable of doing that, and I'd like to see you pull some numbers for us and bring that back to us if done. You guys cool? Let's keep on moving.
So 3%.
Done.
Okay.
Mayor Couts, I would like to answer the question that you had about why personnel decreased 639,000.
Sure.
That's PSPRS.
Okay, that's
We moved
PSPRS.
900,000 from personnel and moved it into
Thank
our
you.
bond.
I kind of felt it was, but I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
and the remaining amounts that increased was the
All right.
1.5% longevity
Okay,
and all
thanks.
that.
Go ahead back where we left off and
And I won't say nothing.
which was at the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
And I won't say nothing.
Arnold won't say nothing. He
I
said,
won't say nothing.
Yeah, he said it would-
Gene, will you kick him underneath the desk if he
He
starts to
already
talk?
has.
I've been.
Okay.
Can't reach you though, what's the problem?
Oh,
So for the general fund, those were all the changes, additions, and deletions that happened since the last time we brought it to you. The next fund would be the streets and HERF. They've readjusted their overtime to be more accurate. It's 5,355. That was all that happened in the streets department. Now we get into the enterprise funds, so sanitation, landfill, they also adjusted their overtime. The electric department added 5,350 for certifications to employees who completed their certs and qualify for the city's personnel policy. The overtime was also increased for that department to be more accurate. Now, this is the department that will answer Arnold's question, Mr. Lopez, about why HR went up more than 4,000. Anytime something happens within another fund, those internal services impact internal services and those impact the other departments. So if we look here, the engineering, their overtime was increased. as well as the fleet overtime was increased $1,150. So I could bring back more of an explanation how those internal services work if you would like, or I can bring it back in the next budget cycle as part of our budget kickoff, explaining those internal services and why they do what they do.
Let me try to understand this first, and then we'll go from there. Because these are a lot of different numbers, and I don't want any of them to get by me. I'm gonna ask you every question I need to, but that'll be all right for now.
Okay. Moving on from there, I just wanted to point out that some of the capital projects that we were discussing, we do have in there the ARPA projects, the 8th Avenue and Discovery Park for $2.4 million. We have $128,230 for ITs, their City Works, the 14th Avenue fiber line, and the downtown Wi-Fi.
On the, you mentioned parks, and that reminded me of one of my notes. I was hoping you would look into, with the monies we're gonna be putting forward to the parks, that we still look at the annex building and some of the things that can be touched up there, because there are some kids that hang around after school, the Friday bunch, and some of their stuff, their shade, maybe an added ramada or something like that. I don't remember it got touched very much when we were I was happy about the outcome of the recommendations from the park committee. But I want to keep that in mind, and if there's monies available there to touch up the picnic tables, a little shade and stuff like that. I'm talking in circles. I hope you get my gist.
No, it actually would tie into my next item right here, would be the,
Hey, good.
the amounts that we have for parks. Council had designated the 1.146 to be set aside for Parks and Recreation. We're using 600,000 of that for the El Paso Park, but I have budgeted 546,000 for situations such as this, for any recreation opportunities, any parks that the council would like to choose in the next year.
How can I get this to be able to talked about without Tammy throwing a fit? Because a place of business is not necessarily where I want my kids to hang out. I want them to hang out at parks. So I think that before any money is stipulated to any thing, I think the council needs to agree on that. You understand what I'm saying? So I think we need to definitely, if we're gonna make a project better, we need to have the council agreements on spending that kind of money to enhance that facility. So that's my projection. I gotta be very careful, because that's definitely getting out of agenda item on that, so.
Mayor Couch, my only point I was trying to make is that I have set aside
You
the
have
546.
contingency money in there of
Yes.
546,000.
And Mayor,
I'll take it.
since we're talking about the budget right now, if in next meeting is the tentative, now is the time. If you wanna put this in there, now would be the time.
So
It's
you
part of the
think
budget.
You think we could talk about
I do.
expansions on areas?
Oh,
and
yeah,
we're okay?
you're talking about the budget. This is just another
As long as you're
potential.
staying within the budget
As long as we stay
discussion.
within that?
Yeah.
Okay. So Councilman Lopez, would you please explain to me what you would like to see done at the annex?
There's things there now, they've deteriorated. There's tables there now, and they're alligator. Paint's going crazy and stuff. The kids would like to be able to slide the tables a little closer together. They like going there after school, and they do get in on the Wi-Fi possibly and do their homework. And to be able to get the water station where they can drink water, a little bit of, just some shade. That's all they were really asking for. It's not a great deal, I don't want a bunch of kids hanging around our building either, but some do. I was just trying to make it a little more comfortable for them. Some added chairs, some shade, make sure the Wi-Fi works.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
And if I understand it correctly, the fact that the money's
in the budget on a contingency basis. It's already there.
Right.
We have time to figure out how to spend it. Is that correct?
Yes,
John?
Mayor Cowles, Councilman
We
Sealy.
don't have to stipulate right now how we're gonna spend that. I think it's a good discussion that we kind of look at, but the fact that the money's already been allocated in the contingency fund means that we could expend it anytime we.
That's
have a
correct.
project that needs to be worked in.
But I did think it was important that we be able to raise the issue so that if we come back later on, that, Councilman Lopez was looking at doing some
The money's
amenities
there.
there. At least we have
Okay.
some type of idea that this will
Perfect.
come back to us and will be part of the budget. What they will be exactly,
Don't know.
it's gonna take a little bit of
Okay. All right,
conversation.
perfect.
Jamie's gone out there and talked to her.
There's
She'll-
contingency
She'll
money
get
there.
told,
All right, let's move on.
and the park people know.
So moving on to the HERF Streets Department for a summary of what's happening in that department. The majority of it is in their capital. So they do have a carryover for the completion of the 20th Avenue widening of $4.3 million. We have the 1.5 for Hollywood Road improvements.
Trying to keep up with you. What page you're on?
7.
7.
7, okay.
So to cover the additional costs of the projects and additional costs to the fund itself, if you look on this call, I don't know how to make this highlight for you, I'm making it worse. So $591,000 is going to be taken out of the reserves to cover the expenses that have been added in for this current fiscal year. Moving on to the enterprise funds, we'll start with the sanitation department. The sanitation department, their personnel has decreased due to changes in staff and employee benefit elections. Their O&M has increased approximately $13,000. The majority of that is due to an increase in estimated fuel costs. The sanitation department is also looking into purchasing 2 sanitation trucks, and these will be financed.
And we're getting the red fuel.
Yes, eventually we will get the red fuel at.
Okay.
Next is our landfill fund. They've increased their personnel due to longevity for the employees that will be receiving that, and their certifications have increased, as well as benefit premium changes. O&M includes an additional $75,000 for the Bureau of Labor I think it's management? Land management. I'm in finance here. So the Bureau of Land Management, environmental assessment for landfill expansion. In the water department, the prior year's revenues included a $5 million WIFA funding, so it will show a reduction in the revenues due to that. For the expenditures, personnel includes a reorganization of the current 2-tier position structure to a 3-tier level. This will allow for increased promotion opportunities within the department, and each tier will be distinguished by the skill, knowledge, and responsibility designated to that tier.
And we're in water, so. And what we're purchasing to purify our water, that's in this one.
Morgan can answer that one.
Okay. That's a big ticket too.
Mayor and Councilman Lopez, are you talking about the Crosco well?
Yes, sir.
The arsenic removal, yes, that project is, those funds are in this current year coming
In
forward.
this one.
Yeah, they rolled over, correct.
Okay, so we're getting that off the ground, hopefully.
The skid has been purchased and we'll be working on the other items as well.
Thank you, sir.
In the wastewater fund, the capital increased approximately $105,000. This includes $130,000 for the extension of the effluent line to the Graham County Fairgrounds and $500,000 for the Smith Well project. In the gas department, personnel has increased due to longevity increases and the premium changes. The purchase for resale gas expenses includes an additional $50,000 due to increased gas prices. And then capital includes their equipment storage unit for $200,000. In our electric fund, the O&M increase in operating supplies due to general increase in the cost of supplies for doing business. And capital includes $2,075,000 for a substation and switchgear upgrades, as well as $800,000 carryover for the copper replacement program. So, and if you would like me to go through each department, we can. If you have specific questions on anything, we can touch on those at this time.
Councilman Lopez, do you want?
No, I'm good. Not as good as I can get.
I don't think we do.
Okay.
Thank you, Cabrina.
Anybody have any questions at all? Let's get this out on the table right now so that we're not throwing Cabrina and John another foul ball.
That was one under the chin, that wasn't even a,
No, yeah, okay.
That was a $30.
All right. So, thank you. We're gonna go on to new and old business. Tammy?
Mayor and council, I have the February 17th council meeting minutes for approval. Did anybody have any questions on them?
I move we approve them.
Second.
We've got a motion to approve. Any second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8.2, which is substation upgrade breaker purchase. That'll be Dan.
Mayor, council members, this is a request to approve cutting a PO to purchase 3 69 kV circuit breakers for the 2023 capital project. The project is for the upgrade of the bus gear in the substation. Currently, the way it's configured, we can't do any maintenance on that without a system-wide outage. And this project will allow us to isolate portions of that for maintenance. The monies would, if we cut the PO today, we would be able to order them at the requested price of $150,000, and we wouldn't pay them until we get them shipped in 2023 budget. That's basically the gist of it. I'll answer any questions.
Councilman Lopez?
Sir, Mayor, Mr. McGoy and I visited with Director Bratz last year and walked through the substation because he had already had this CIP project forecast to be able to isolate these 3 different circuits. And he's after the switch gear that will be able to open that 69 kVA under load, which I wished you guys could see that open in the middle of the night. It's quite a sight when it opens that much current. But it's part of the project. My understanding is he's trying to get the PO ordered now because we have had some problems with the circuitry, even the chips that have, you've heard that on the news, the chips. And then we've had disasters, natural disasters and stuff where some equipment we ordered gets taken somewhere else in the nation to go replenish some of those. Like we had a bank go down during our rainy day, big rain, hail deal that went down over here, and it took us months to get transformers. So I believe Mr. Bratz just want to get his hands on this equipment before he can't.
Now, the main reason we want to order them right now is because they have a 34 to 37 week lead time,
There you go.
and we want to do this project in the spring of '23.
While we have it cool. I think that's what I understand of it.
Yes, sir, it is.
I don't understand all what you guys do, but I'm trying to talk to the mayor, the rest. So,
Yeah, and it's just cutting a PO today,
Get it
and we'll
on
pay
the
for them out of the 2023 budget.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. 9.1, Resolution R22-009, fatigue recovery policy. Morgan?
Mayor and council, this item is a request for the mayor and council to approve resolution R22-009, amending the city of Safford on-call policy as it pertains to fatigue recovery. The city of Safford is responsible for providing critical services to the citizens of Safford and paying customers of the city of Safford. In order to provide the essential functions, the city requires qualified employees to participate in on-call scheduling, to be able to respond to after-hour, weekend, and holiday calls. Each qualified employee holds the on-call phone in a ready state to respond for a 7-day period. The city of Safford presented a revision of the on-call policy to council April 11th, 2022, for discussion and direction. This revision included fatigue recovery, which would allow the employees to stay home without using personal time off in an effort to recover from hours worked within a sleep time window of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. the day before a regular scheduled workday. After discussion, staff made revisions to the on-call policy as it pertains to compensation of the fatigue recovery and callback section of the policy. So in your council packet, you should have received an on-call policy revision document that kind of outlines the changes that we have made. And I'll briefly kind of go over a couple of them. One of the concerns that I heard was that the 2-hour minimum, if an employee was called out at 5 a.m. and the regular scheduled workday starts at 6, we would double pay them, where now example number 4 says that you only get paid the 2-hour minimum as long as it falls outside of the regular scheduled work hours. There was also a concern about the employees not being allowed to take fatigue recovery, where now in this revision it states that they are eligible, and it is determined by the supervisor and another approval of the manager or department head if the emergency is ongoing or not. After the emergency has been satisfied and is not ongoing, in section C6, the employee is required to take that fatigue recovery after the emergency has been fulfilled. Are there any questions?
Okay, motion?
I move we approve resolution R 22-009.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Item 9.2, resolution
Better
20.
read it.
You have to read it
You have
too.
to read it.
Read it.
Resolution number R 22-009, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving the on-call policy of the Human Resources Policy Manual for the city of Safford employees.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
9.2, resolution 22-16, abolishment of the Parks and Recreation Committee. Jamie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to abolish the current Parks and Recreation Committee as it stands, so that later tonight in the work session, we can move forward with what direction the council would like the committee to go. We've had a couple of resignations and one member I haven't been able to speak with, but you have an email from the current chair saying items that the committee members that would like to move forward are interested in. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
I move we approve resolution R 22-016.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I appreciate everything that committee did, and abolishing them is understood so we can rebuild it the way
Yes.
we want.
Mhm.
And because at the beginning, it was lumpy too, because there wasn't any understanding of the rules.
Yes.
And I think we went through about 4 meetings before that was clarified. We lost some people during that time because of the organization. Once they learned the rules, they got everything going, things went smooth, according to what I've heard.
Yes.
And so why it wasn't done at the beginning, I don't know. That makes me a little leery, but I'll understand that later. But with your resolution, it reads here, one of the whereases is that the committee, let's see, the mayor and council, and not, I hope you're listening, because I think I may be getting it wrong, I don't know. But the mayor and Safford City Council recognize the successful work of the current committee and believe it is appropriate to abolish the existing structure to begin a long-term committee to provide recommendations. Well, that already obligates us to make another committee. Is that the way I read it, or anybody else? We're obligated already by your resolution to make another committee. And you're already making a resolution when you have this subject matter coming up in the work session in 15. We haven't even talked about it.
Correct. So would you like me to amend that whereas,
I didn't make the motion, ma'am.
Mayor?
You know, Councilman Lopez, you bring up a valid point. And I believe Vice Mayor made the motion, and Councilman Hemphill did the second. Would you feel like
Does it-
allowing the amendment to take place?
Yeah.
Is it, I don't know, does that read like we're already obligated to make another
Tammy,
committee?
can you-
And because
You
it,
can
I'm
attest to
sorry,
the
man.
same thing?
Okay.
Would you reread what it needs to say without making that committee? Because we're going to be talking about that in the work session, so that we can get a motion and a second on that, please.
Sure. Tammy, would you like me to read it slowly so you can type it?
Go right ahead.
So
I
it's the fourth whereas, and it would read, whereas the mayor and Safford City Council recognize the successful work of the current committee and believe it is appropriate to abolish the existing structure, period.
Okay. Vice
That's
Mayor,
fine.
Vice Mayor, we have a motion,
Second.
and Brad, Councilman Hemphill will second that. Any more discussion?
Not on the resolution.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And Tammy, could you read that with the, or as it's stated now?
So resolution number R 22-016, a resolution abolishing the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for the city of Safford. Motion was put into the minutes with the amendment into the fourth whereas.
Thank you. Brings us to item 10-1, airport agreements, parcel C7, Form M Industries, Inc.
Mayor and council members, I'll be quick. We're here seeking authorization to execute a new lease on the property C7 at the airport. This is with Aaron Moats. We approached you in January and executed a lease there for a 60 by 70 lot for him to build a hangar. He's running into some issues with some of the infrastructure to get his doors opened, so he's requesting a larger size. What we're proposing is to execute a new lease, which would be 5 foot, extended both east and west, 10 foot on the rear end, and starting that in June. So what we'd do is we'd prorating based on the original agreement up through June and exercise that, and then whatever he had left over for credit, establishing a new contract going forward, starting in June.
Mr. Bowman, is the square footage price average?
That was based on a resolution of 12 cents per square foot for vacant lot at the airport.
Okay, but I don't know if that's a question I asked you. Is that average of what the airport hangars lease when we own the property? Is that average of what it's going for?
I think Lance has a comment, but yes, right now that's currently what we're trying to do. There's some issues out there with some of the older leases that we're trying to work through. But.
Lance?
Answer that question, no. It's fairly low for industry standard. Asking around the state, I've had other airports question me and survey us for our prices, and that's something that now is probably the best time to introduce Cameron Atkins. He's our new airport manager. Just started today. Part of his process will be to help us do a survey and establish some new rates out there, T-hanger rates, land lease rates, all that stuff.
I don't think he needs to go out to bid for a survey. I think he can make some phone calls and find
It'll
out
be
what
us.
that is. But I do think that we need to really, now that you got systems in place, I think we need to really take ownership of that airport, get us up to industry standards, and try to make some money out there.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and
Perfect.
and looking through all the history I've looked at back in when there was an airport commission, I think it was 2012, 11, something like that. There was a survey done, there was a push to increase rates, and it was shot down. And so the 2015 resolution has our current rates, and that's the last time rates have been increased, and that's what, 8 years ago. So it's time, we need to look at it, especially with people wanting to rent property and get hangars built out there.
Perfect. Thanks, Lance. And,
Have any questions for Cameron?
yeah, anybody?
I'll move that we approve the airport agreement for parcel number C-7.
I'll do the second.
Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Bowman, real quick, what was Tanner?
Cameron.
That his name?
Cameron.
I can't hear, I'm deaf. What is it?
Cameron.
Cameron.
Yep.
Okay, Cameron what?
Atkins.
Atkins. Like the Atkins diet?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Welcome. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Announcement of current events, item 11. Now is the time to have announcement of current events.
Mayor, I don't know if this is where you would do this, but there was a feature on the website. I don't know if I've seen it before, but it was kind of a summary of the last council meeting. I don't know if that's new, but I like that. I don't know whose idea that was
Matthews.
to add that, but that was a nice touch.
And
Thank you, Matthew.
And also, if you ever get online and watch it because you're not allowed to, or because you can't make the meetings, when I was sick, I brought it up to John's attention that our council looked, not our council, but our live feed just didn't look up to par. And I think it got back to him because the live feed's starting to look really good. I like how you split the screens because I know you have that capability of splitting the screens, and I appreciate you getting the screen split to where everybody could be aware of what's going on and the speaker and everything like that. So it just looks sharp. If we have the equipment, we need to be using it at full extent, and I appreciate that. So once again,
Did they do something about how
your hair,
bald I look on the feed? It's not.
He's got it darker or
indicative of
something.
My actual, maybe it is.
Yeah, he's supposed to make
Maybe
you look
I'm in
good.
denial, but maybe we can work on that.
It's a light.
It's a
It
light.
is the lights. Thank you, Richard.
All right, anybody else have anything under announcement of current events? Okay, John?
I got two quick things. One, I wanted to make council aware of item 12, which is, given recent events, I felt it might be useful to pull out a request for future agenda items as their own thing, so that if we want to revisit any existing items, if we want to bring up any new items, they don't necessarily have to be resolutions or anything, but if there's some operational items. So what we did is we split them in two. This will give us an opportunity to discuss something. If an item requires a certain number of council members to approve it for us to move forward, this would give us an opportunity. So if it's an executive session, we can get 2 council members. That way staff knows where to go with it right out of the gate. So I had Tammy split these out in 2. Hopefully this will give us a little bit more opportunity to have a discussion so that we can move forward on items. And it gives council a little bit more of an opportunity to bring things to staff, because generally we're bringing the work session items, we're bringing the executive session. So hopefully this will give you guys some opportunity to bring some things to us. And then I did want, and is there any comments or? And then I did want to have Lance make an announcement on 20th Avenue real quick.
As council mayor, at the last meeting, I briefed you a little bit about 20th Avenue and the cement shortage, and since that meeting, we did get the official notice from our contractor that they were requesting a shutdown of the project. They had 117 yards of concrete poured on the 5th and 6th of April, and the next week went to 19 yards. And then the week of the letter we got, which was right after the meeting, they got 12 yards allotted to them. So you just can't keep productivity going at that rate. So in conversation with ADOT, and they got with the state engineer's office and FHWA, instead of doing a complete shutdown of the project, we're gonna do a time extension. Basically stopping work on April 30th is what they requested. They're still responsible to maintain traffic control, striping, temporary striping. They're gonna be here actually on Thursday, I think, to freshen that up. The striping's getting a little bit weak. Any kind of storm event or something we have, they're actually working on a reclaimed water line project. They're right here in town, so we can call them at any time to go and fix stuff that needs to be done, and it's allowed because it's a time extension of the project, not a project shutdown. So the project was basically stopped work on April 30th, but they are in town, and they will maintain everything until we get going. Probably around the end of June is what we're looking at, is what they've been saying as far as cement get picked back up again. So any questions on 20th Avenue?
Lance, the only thing I want to say is thank you to you and Mr. Casal for taking care of that situation with the striping. That was the most important concern with me, so
Yeah,
thank you.
they'll probably be there Thursday, like I said, and then if it needs it again, we'll hit it again. We'll have them hit it again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. John already hit item 12 with us with the request for future agenda items, unless anybody has something put on there. Go ahead, Councilman McGoy.
I don't know that it needs to be an agenda item, but I'd like to have a discussion about, I don't know if it's hours or dog catcher services or dog catcher hours or what, but I, you know, I know that the city, the city of Safford, has a contract with them, and they I understand we had a dog bite this week and couldn't get a dog catcher out to pick up a dog that was available, and now the lady's having to have rabies shots because they can't find the dog. And I'd just like to discuss that, whether a part-time dog catcher is working, and it's my opinion that a part-time dog catcher should be at our convenience, not at his. So having set hours doesn't really fit the bill. I just like to have the discussion. I don't know at what point or where it fits in anything, but.
Mayor, Councilman McGoy, we can either do a work session on it or a discussion item if you want, and we can also have an operational report too.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's gonna be enough money in the budget if we decide to put a full-time dog catcher on?
You still want 3%?
John,
I know better than to go there.
all right, so we will definitely get that on for, a work session, or definitely, let's talk about it next week, or not next week, 2 weeks from today.
I thought that was part of the airport manager's part-time.
That he ran the dog catcher stuff?
I thought that was one of the criteria.
Probably was. We'll have to
Probably need to let him know.
Yeah. You gotta make dog calls.
Okay.
All right. Report on operational items, service line warranty update. Morgan?
Mayor and council,
How
I
about you
wanted
hit
to.
both of those out quick?
All right, we'll do what we can. So I just want to give you guys an update on the Service Line Warranty of America. For the newer council members, we endorse this program, Service Line Warranty of America, that allows or offers a program to individuals to insure their water lines from their meter to their foundation, and their sewer lines from their foundation to their property line. I wanted to give a brief update on how that program is going. In 2021, we had an additional 76 water service line programs. We had an additional 74 sewer line programs and 42 plumbing and drain programs that were added onto. So in total, since 2018, we have a total of 279 water lateral programs, 251 sewer, and 113 in-home. I spoke to these individuals just last week, and they are happy with the percentage of the people that are participating. With the numbers they see, they feel that it's above average of what they typically see of people getting involved in the program. Are there any questions? I would like to add that 30 jobs or claims were completed in 2021, which is a total savings of $15,000 for the residents that are a part of this program. There are no.
And we still have sufficient contractors in town that'll.
So currently 3G is still the only contractor that is interested in participating. So this program likes to or uses the residential or in-town contractors to give money back to the community. And 3G is the only one that has been interested. I've reached out to other contractors in the past, and they're just so busy building new construction.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the water update. So just to kind of give you a brief update on the water system and what it's looking like, we're still producing about 2,000 to 2,100 gallons out of Bonita Creek, which is pretty standard. Last month in April, we were starting to kick the wells on, and we contributed 37 million gallons of production out of the wells. Bonita Creek produced 79 million gallons for the month of April, and the wells contributed the 37, which is a total of 31% of the total production of the water system. We continually track the water tables. Each day that the wells run, we'll sound them, and if not, then we sound them at least once a month. And from last month to last year, they've stayed relatively stable compared to last year. So going into this pumping season, I feel pretty comfortable at this point. However, we'll continue to update you as the season goes on.
Has the education program kicked in for the citizens, the water users?
So Mayor and Councilman Ortega, I'll allow either John Casella or Jason Brimhall to comment on that, since they are active and engaged in producing something like that.
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Ortega, we're working on that. We probably will have an introductory piece on that at the next meeting.
Okay, any other questions for Morgan on the water?
Good job, Morgan.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and close our regular meeting, reconvene into council work session to talk about Parks and Recreation Committee.
No, no, no.
Code enforcement.
Yeah, we already did that.
I think there's one other item, is there not?
We didn't want to talk about it. Go ahead, Jamie.
But I wrote a whole paragraph about it. So the other citizen that brought up 606 West 16th Street is one of several owned by the same property owner that Jaime is working with, and she's in the process of trying to sell them. So I just wanted to go through the process for a code enforcement complaint. It's noticed by the neighborhood officer or a complaint is brought in. If the officer can reach the person, they give him a couple of weeks to a verbal notice to clean it up. If they can't, a 30-day letter is mailed to the property owner. If no one replies after the 30-day letter, then we refer the case to the prosecutor. Each violation is its own case with its own timeline. So if we don't have a current case, but we did 2 years ago on that same property, that's why. If they comply and it reoccurs in a few months, it is a new case. Section 8.08.080 and 8.08090 allow for removal and lien by the city, but we are not equipped to handle that at a systemic level at this time.
Anybody have any questions on that? Thanks, Jamie. We'll go ahead and close the regular meeting, reconvene to council work session, Parks and Recreation Committee. Jamie, you're back up.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So in your packet for this, staff would like to have a discussion and direction about Parks and Recreation moving forward. The City of Safford established a Parks and Recreation Committee in 2021. In the months after its inception, the committee met and created a package of recommendations for the City Council. When the committee began, term limits, etc., were not put in place. Council requested a sunset resolution for the committee at the April 25th meeting and requested discussion for the future of Parks and Recreation. If the council would like to recreate a Parks and Recreation Committee, term limits and clear tasking could be included in the resolution. Quorums were difficult to maintain with the previous committee, and members would like to set a number of meetings to attend so that they are easier to schedule. Staff is committed to facilitating a new committee in a format chosen by the council. I've attached the previous rules of procedure and the previous resolution for your review.
So are they asking that they'd like to step up and do even more work? Because we have a lot going on within the community, and maybe they could be actively involved in this recreation committee, in the stuff that the city does support, like our spring festivals and.
And so we have a couple members, including the previous chair, if you have any questions for them too, that have attended. And then,
Well, I think, I'm interested in keeping this. I'm interested in having something. I like the idea of having term limits that they can still ask for an extension, just like we do with planning and zoning and stuff. So I think it's great, and I think if some of these individuals want to step up and do this, I think, I think it's supposed to be 7 members, right?
mm-hmm. And we currently have 5.
5? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a great opportunity to hear from them, and they might even be able to recommend stuff to the chamber as well as anything, and say, hey, let us help you bring other stuff in or whatever. I think it's a great opportunity. So if they would love to, if they'd love to speak, I'd love to hear them. But I'm highly interested in you guys staying on. I mean, you're an asset to us. And so I'd love to see you guys stay on or take the helm on a lot of responsibility as well. So that's me personally.
I totally agree with you.
Mayor, and I agree too, do they have some thoughts on term limits, how long, what would be
Nora, would you?
appropriate? Because that's really what we're deciding,
Right.
just those kind of, correct?
Right,
Or
Thank you.
giving direction toward.
given direction towards.
Okay, I don't know how to do this, but, Mayor and Council. We met, the end of March, and it was at the Safford High School. And most of the members want to stay committed. Actually, the 5 do want to stay committed. They are excited about it. We would like to have a little bit more of some organization as to the roles or like agenda items, different things like that. And this is a learning curve for everybody. I mean, it's the first time that it's been, put together or whatever. And so, but everybody involved does want to do it. We're excited about it. We want to help either collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce, with the school districts, things that we can do to help make more community in Safford. Every member was stating, we have Pete here, he just got back from Tucson, from an EMT, and he's here tonight. So I just want you guys to know that we're here and we're available to you. Communicate with us what you need and how we can be a support. We can be, every member on the council or on the committee is involved in our community in some way. Teachers, EMT workers, principals, business owners. We can reach out within our community and we can get what our community needs and relay that in. So we want this to be a collaboration. So what do you need? We can help. With that being said, I don't think it needs to be that we need to meet every single week like we were meeting. But then again, this is what's on the board. What is expected of us? What is,
Mrs. Rogers, are you thinking of term limits of 4 years, 3 years, 2 years? What do you think?
I don't know because I haven't.
Don, you have a suggestion?
I do.
Okay, shoot it out there for us to listen to.
But I would defer, I guess, until you answer the question.
Yeah, I would have to, we would have to ask the committee and see what they think, but everybody that is involved to me seems like they have a personal commitment to this, so.
Okay.
My recommendation would be that their terms coincide with the council member's term that appoints them.
Okay. That would make sense. But I think that would be really sorry if, I nominated Mrs. Rogers and I lose my election, she's obviously off the
That's
board.
correct. That's how
She
it
should
would
have
work.
the opportunity to stay on and address the council and the new person, so.
Right, but remember that they're a reflection of you, right? So
Okay.
your individual is there representing you, and so if someone were to take your place, then you would want them to have that same opportunity that you had, right, to appoint someone, and they may appoint the
Wow,
same person.
that's harsh, but okay.
That is.
That's very harsh. I'd have to really process that one. I don't know that I like that because I don't think that's right. I don't think that, for instance, Mrs. Rogers would be stuck with me. Maybe she don't like me and would be happy that I'd be off as whatever and stay. So that's a tough one to swallow. I'd have to say,
Then maybe that we approach it differently than rather
maybe go
than.
3 years then.
If you wanted to do something that was disconnected from council terms, then I would recommend a subcommittee that would select members for the committee, so they weren't direct appointees, and then you guys could agree on a group of folks that you wanted on there, and that way you could set a term for them. Because I think if you appoint it directly, I think you're gonna want that person to be a reflection of you and your term, and again, if anybody were to switch out, they would want that same opportunity, so I would recommend that you do a different appointment process.
So what would work would be an odd, because all of us would be an even election. It's every 4 years. So if you went every 3 years, that'd be odd. So that would mean that Mrs. Rogers would I lost. Mrs. Rogers would serve for 1 year until the next person. She could present her case, and then that person could say, absolutely, let's keep her on or keep him on or whatever. I would suggest 3 years. I would also suggest that they need to live and reside in the Safford city limits. Maybe that's too much to ask. I don't know that it is, because everything is reflecting sales tax and how much we put into it and stuff like that. So I would throw out a 3-year term with the possibility, well, with extensions, but they make that plea. I think they should have to live in the city limits. That's a couple I have. What do you got, Arnold?
I agree with 3 years, 3, 4. They're certainly not an extension of me. These people got more character than that. You know, I chose them because they did have good integrity and character, my person. And I know those that stayed on board do have the heart in it. And so I would say a minimum of 3 years, live in the city limits of Safford, that they're working on the parks. I'm not so sure the Chamber of Commerce or downtown involvement or anything like that. They're their own entities.
Well, gotcha.
And so I don't see involvement with them. But I at least want them to stay with us on the park till they're done. They've got a lot invested in this. They know what kind of equipment they talked about, where they kind of like it set. They have a lot of guidance they're already looking at that I never heard about, but I know they worked on. So, and that they're purchasing, they're keeping an eye on, I don't mean staff needs it necessarily, but they're keeping an eye on staff too for us. And they're enjoying it. And I think their guidelines and stuff, because it says they are under the guidelines of, I just had it and I lost it. Oh, the Organizational Expectations and Guidelines document. I'm not sure that should govern them either. I'd have to reread that. Once they learned that they had rules to follow that weren't being followed, after about 4 meetings, they took the bull by the horns and they conducted their own meetings and got things done, once they got us out of the way. And I'd like them to be able to do that. If they want to meet quarterly, that would be up to them. They would know how often. They stay in contact with Lance on where they're going and stuff, and that's a start. I don't know what more, but mainly staying in contact with the parks.
Hang on, Vice Mayor, let's go ahead.
I don't disagree with the chamber, but I think it was in an email, and you might have alluded to it earlier too, but I kind of like the idea of input on the IGA with the schools.
Yes.
As one of the
Right.
functions.
There are a few of us that work for the school district. And we've considered addressing that and moving, trying to move forward, but we don't know what our boundaries are or different things. So there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of, I think, boundaries that need to be worked out, and maybe even in the, and like we said, this is a learning curve and everybody that is involved understands that now. But I would request from the council that there would be a level of professionalism from all involved, that we would be able to collaborate together and just make it, we can make it work.
Vice Mayor?
I think what I read, or the way I understood those terms and conditions for this committee, kind of addressed what a quorum would be and that type thing. So I think it could be condensed a little bit, and the way they vote, what's the majority, it was long. But just kind of make it a little more simple for them to operate on.
Go ahead, Councilman Seal.
Just one suggestion. I think there's a lot of things that need to be discussed once we get a full committee, which apparently we don't have at this point. So I think for tonight, if we just decide, do we want to go forward with it? Have term limits, then I think once we get the committee formed, one thing that we never did as a council is meet with them. And I think that would be okay in a work session or something, would it not?
Yeah.
And then we can go over all these things. Tonight, I don't think we can really do them justice, but I think if we move forward with it, which it looks like we want to, then get a committee formed and then sit down and go over.
I think that's a great idea.
Your expectations of us and our expectations of you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
We're just learning too, Mr. Draghi.
And so I would recommend that one thing that we make sure when we sit down is that we're very clear on what it is we want them to do. And it's very critical because it's very easy for this to get off the rails. So let's have that understanding that we're discussing. I think it's very, very important that we're clear. I mean, even with the past experience, I think part of the going forward will be continuing to look at the existing project and carry that through to fruition. I think that would be one of the items. But again, it's very important that the council be very clear on what their expectations are in that tasking, so that we can write it into their bylaws and make sure that that's what they're focusing on. And it can be as broad, as narrow as you want. Just make sure that you're being clear on what it is that you want. And I just want to address I think the issue on the expectations document, there was just a piece in there on civic engagement. So all it was saying was that we encourage that. It wasn't being specific as to how we did it. It was just saying that civic engagement is something that the council wanted, and that they would fulfill that role simply by participating and doing what they're doing. But there wasn't anything real specific on it.
Yeah, I needed to touch on it more. I didn't want to tie in their hands either.
No, it's very, Brad, in fact, all it says is opportunities to increase citizen engagement with the city on a social and formal basis will be a priority. That's all it says. So it's very broad.
Yeah, I like the idea of the IGA too, Brad. I didn't say it, I guess I took it for granted that was part of but yeah, them working with the IGA, them being aware of what's going on there, it would be good for them too. They would need to know that information.
All right, I think we definitely want the Parks and Recreation Committee. We need some term limits, and I would like for us to have the staff to kind of heard what we said, produce something, because that's the last thing I want to do is invite a full Park and Recreation Committee to a meeting where we sit up here and we kick the can 100,000 times and they leave out of here like, what the heck did they just say? So we need to have all of our ducks in a row so that when we meet with them, this is what we expect out of them, and if they have any questions, they could ask individual council members to explain that.
So I think what we can do as staff is get you the guidelines in terms of how the committee itself would operate. We can put the terms at 3, which is what we discussed, and then council would sit with them and decide what it is that you wanted them to focus on. That would be something that you would decide with them. So we could provide the structure in which they would operate, but you guys would discuss the particulars of what they did.
All right, that sounds great. Anybody have anything else?
I don't know if the
Pete,
chair.
you want to speak?
I don't know if the chair, is gonna have Mr. Gowna say anything.
Mayor, council members, just a couple comments real quick. I'm not real sure why you think we need term limits. And just a couple of things. First of all, it's not a paid position, so I don't plan on doing this for 20 years, but I'm doing this for my interest of the city and the kids and, what we can do as far as parks go and stuff like that. So yeah, I would like to see the projects through. I don't know if that's gonna take 1 year, 6 years, or whatever, but I may not have the interest for 6 more years. So I'm not sure exactly what term limits are gonna do for an unpaid position. The other part of that is that you talk about a learning curve. Okay, so if we all go away at the same time, guess what? That learning curve starts all over again for somebody new. Now, if we leave as we want to, then you still have people that know everything that's going on, if that makes sense. That's just something to think about. That's all I got.
Definitely, we stagger half and half.
Right.
You wouldn't have all 7 of us go up for election at the same time. That'd be
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead, Jamie.
What people could do is they could serve at will, and then if they resign for a life situation, whatever, then a new applicant could be presented and to the mayor, a letter of interest, we could advertise it, and then the body could vote yes or no on that person. And so that way, there's not really a term limit, and then your concern would be met about.
I like that, at will, and then
the body
advertise
votes.
it and then bring it to the council for the vote, or even a councilman could even recommend somebody to you and you can reach out to them or whatever. I like that, at will.
And then that
perfect.
solves kind of both issues.
Perfect.
Okay.
I like that.
So I'll bring
That's
that
just, but I'm just one, but I like that.
Good idea.
That will work.
Did this horse stand up, Arnold?
Um,
Did you watch that
I
horse
don't know,
race and
but-
watch old Rich win that sucker?
Yeah. that
Oh
was
my
better.
gosh.
I didn't know if Mrs.
Vice
Rogers.
Mayor?
I don't know if Mrs.
Second.
Rogers had anything else.
Mrs. Rogers, do you have anything else? Okay. Thank you, guys.